Jeff, thank you for your exceedingly kind introduction. It's an honor and privilege to serve, always has been. The responsibility of taking care of your sons, your daughters, your brothers, your sisters, your husbands and wives is one that provides immeasurable satisfaction, but it's serious business. Your presence here today is an incredible testament to the support of the nation and the support that your veterans and your active duty members can count on. But what we're talking about here isn't just about the military. It's also to all first responders and people in the service of our communities who are exposed to potential traumas. So this is a wonderful undertaking. It's been said over and over how important what you're doing is. It certainly cannot be overstated. And Jeff, I also want to throw back to you that we're so proud of what you are doing right now to advance the cause as well, not just for our community, but for the nation as a whole. With that, Mr. Cohen, Dr. Haas, Dr. Hassan, thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share some time with you. You know, I took some satisfaction in reading the program and noting that, that one of your objectives, one of the important things besides the therapeutics, was also the interventions on prevention and what that means, timely, integrating best practices and the like. So there is a continuum of care and support, I think, that's implicated in that. I'm only 6 weeks a veteran. I retired 6 weeks ago, so my talk is supposed to be about a veteran's perspective, steeped in 6 weeks of being a veteran. So it may be limited. I will tell you, I still think, I haven't had a chance to not think otherwise, so I still think like I'm in the service, and it's all about readiness, combat effectiveness, sustainability, resiliency, and fast twitch adaptability. All these things are essential to winning the fight. We have to keep our experience in the fight. This is where prevention becomes so critical, okay, and cutting-edge therapeutics, because prevention, building the resiliency that immunizes our folks against potential stressors that we know about, you know, the 3 millennia history and the knowledge that's ensconced in everything we know about trauma in combat and trauma in general tells us we know a lot, but there's not a huge body of information on how to prevent it. You know, age after age after age, we send our soldiers in knowing there's potential implications, but what are the protocols really for immunizing and doing preventive intervention or preventive engagement? If PTS is a normal physiological reaction to stress, is it really a disorder? You know, Jeff just talked about the stigmatization. I know you're aware of the stigmatization, and in certain cultures, even within the military, it's varies in its intensity. You know, how willing are you to come forward and seek help? How stoic are you? How is stoicism valued in the force? Okay, these things are all manageable when 911 kicked off, and once again we launched into another conflict without really understanding, okay, you know, what are the implications of stress in the long term? We did get told by a very sage commander, Admiral Eric Olson, that this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Keep that in mind, pace yourself, okay? And every day we got up and we sprinted. And we sprinted like madmen, because you really can't half-step when you're engaged. And you know, that's both liberating, inspiring, and it also presents its own challenges. So I'd like to ask, how many of you have read Sebastian Junger's article or were exposed to it? It came out about a year ago, maybe a year and 4 or 5 months, on PTS. It came out in Vanity Fair, strangely enough. Okay, I see a couple hands. Any others? So maybe 50%. I have to tell you that article and Garrett's discussion yesterday really hit on a chord, because if you're on the line in the military, you don't really have access to all the wonderful thinking that you all do, the cutting edge technologies. They haven't been fielded yet. They're concepts, they're things that you're working on in the laboratory, there's things that you're studying, but how are they operationalized, and how is that benefit delivered to the people who need them the most in the now? We talk about, you know, keeping our force our experienced force in the game, it's more than delivering effects to a target. At some point, those experienced people become trainers who generate the force, who understand how to regenerate the force after deployments, who further down the trail, coming back in different assignments in the fight, become responsible for arranging activities in time, space, and purpose to achieve effects against the enemy. They become the warfighter. Not just the product, not just the tactical shooter on the target, but in 20 to 30 years, they become so much more. They understand how to achieve effects. They understand how to influence the enemy. They understand tactical and operational patience. And all these things become critical. But if we can't keep them in the force, I mean, can you imagine, with Garrett's discussion yesterday, you may not be the hero of your own story. You may not get that part of your life back. Only you can decide if you're going to move forward. Those are such impactful statements that wouldn't it be great to have a line commander or a senior NCO in a company talk to his troops and help immunize them, help prepare them for what's to come, help them be resilient. This is the kind of guy that we want to keep in, is the people who have those kinds of insights, that kind of intellect, and that kind of resiliency to be able to rebound, because they're wonderful examples for the rest of us. So I want to talk a little bit about that continuum. You know, what do we do on the active duty side that institutionalizes resilience, that operationalizes resilience, that helps prevent us from being unduly impacted by stressors? And I will tell you, perhaps the most evident example, the most documented one, is around late 2012. Admiral Bill McCraven initiated a program called Preservation of the Force and Families. And the design of that program was to institutionalize resiliency. And it addressed the mind, the body, and the spirit. Okay? These are not hard science topics, but interestingly, when you look at Mr. Younger's article, and you go through the score of studies that are cited in there, and basically it's an expose on behavioral anthropology. Okay? It's not hard science, it's not biomarkers, it's not therapeutics, it's not wearables. It is behavioral anthropology drawn from ages of human interactions. And these are things that we can readily access. And the one thing that really leaps out, you know, within the society, as Garrett started to talk about yesterday, you know, the acceptance. How much of a part of your society is what's going on? Or are you separate in your own bubble? Are you held out in your own bubble? Does nobody else really understand? And when you kind of go through the cultures in this article, whether it's the Israeli Defense Force, whether it's hunter-gatherer tribes, whether it's the American Indians who have no lexicon whatsoever for PTS or stress-related disorders, it's because these experiences are integrated in the fabric of their society. And so how do you replicate those sorts of effects in the active duty force? And for the purposes of this conference, what are the biomarkers that indicate that you're successful in doing so? How do you measure that? How do you enhance that? When it begins to falter, how do you reinforce it and stand it back up? So your work has the potential to do so much more than benefit veterans. We want to retrograde it into the active duty force and take that continuum of care and support, because there's a continuum of care and support. We know what the baselines of our people are when they come in. We do the behavioral assessments. We do the psychological screenings. We do the stress testing. Okay? We know where they are when they start. We know where they go over a period of years. We also know that the same person on a different day and under a different set of circumstances does not react consistently. We know that the effects are cumulative, but they're also logarithmic and unpredictable. Okay, and so real-time monitoring and the ability to come back in periodically and assess where people are, okay, in this journey as they move through the ranks and move through their experiences and move through their scope of contribution to the fight becomes critical. And then when they come out on the veteran side, again, there's tremendous comfort in knowing that this has been integrated in the fabric of the culture. The culture, our society, our nation is prepared to deal with it and integrate it and take care of it. These things are comforting. So I'll go back to, we talk about mind, body, and spirit in the context of institutionalizing resiliency and the POTA force. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We have a program called the Human Performance Initiative and also the Tactical Athlete Program. So when we get a member that comes in, we basically do a physical assessment on the person. We understand what their physical capabilities are, their power, their endurance, their aerobic capacity, their agility, okay, plyometric movement, all these sorts of things are assessed. And we also assess them for weaknesses. And we tailor an individualized training program to reinforce the weaknesses, because everybody left to their own devices focuses on their strengths, and they become exceedingly strong in their strengths, but they never really tend to address their weaknesses because those aren't comfortable to address. They're not fun, and they take the most work. And so you'd rather be stronger and play to your strengths in that regard. But we do that. We assess them for where they may need to be reinforced, and we provide the training to do that. So they become more rounded. We call that prehabilitation, not rehabilitation, not treatment, but an assessment and a protocol that allows them to be a stronger warrior. Okay? When you talk about addressing the dimensions of how impacts hit people, we used a popular, and I'm not going to name the company's name, but we used a well-known and popular metadata analysis tool that really helped us analyze both structured and unstructured data sets and pull in really a holistic set of information on an individual, on a group of individuals that served in a unit or an operation, regardless of where they are today, and also helped us assess trends in the force. And what are these trends that we analyze? Alcohol-related incidents, indications of substance abuse, prescription drugs and types of prescriptions, whether they're steroids, T therapy, HGH type therapies, again related to reinforcing stress issues, domestic incidents, pending divorces, traumatic operations or significant major operations where casualties were incurred, and we can cross-cut the data and see where people are. Okay? In every case where we've had a catastrophic failure, a member who's been a member of the force for 15 years, highly decorated, bulletproof mentally, physically, you never know that something's wrong until there's a catastrophic incident and substance abuse emerges. And then in retrograde, when you go back and look, you find out that his buddies knew, others knew, his wife knew. And the still stigmatization, we're getting much, much better. People are coming forward, trust and confidence is generated that our care and concern and our compassion is genuine. But I will tell you, there's still latent stoicism and reluctance to come forward. Okay? So in retrograde, we can always find these things. Now, using metadata analysis and cross-cutting on data sets of interest, we attempted to form a predictive model, or one that should indicate that you've got some flashing yellow lights coming up in your life. Okay? The results of that, anonymized, were processed at what we call the Human Factors Council, which got together quarterly within a unit and assessed members and said, okay, these are some of the life stress points that are going on with this individual. Do we want to engage? Because he's at about the 3/4 mark for getting ready to have something major happen that will impact him professionally. Okay. We're still in the experimental phases of that. We're still seeking funding to close the tool of our preference, but there's other tools that are out there. There's other ways to assess that data. And there's other ways, I think, to back therapeutics, wearables, and biomarkers into this if we're able to establish correlations and causalities. So I think that's very, very promising, and it'll hit a much broader segment and will have different impacts on the nation and its readiness. And retain some of our most valued talent. I want to tell you about another piece, our Gold Star Family Program. When you talk about the behavioral anthropology dimensions, whether it's suicide, whether it's stress, it's all related to some degree, a sense of belongingness, a sense of integration, a sense of support. That becomes most pronounced, the absence of that, when you transition out and you become a veteran. I'm already feeling it. I'd like to tell you that I'm not particularly bothered by it, but that would just be stoicism. I feel cut off from my brotherhood, and I'm in an unknown area because I've known nothing but military service since I was in high school, and many people in the service are like this. So this dimension of how do you establish that integration? How do you keep it alive? Gold Star Families is one of our examples, okay, where we had our first mass casualty in 2005, in the summer of 2005. It's chronicled in the movie Lone Survivor, but we lost 8 special aviation warriors from the Special Operations Air Regiment. We lost 11 of our own. We had 1 survivor. The impacts to the families in our community in that mass casualty was unexpected, and the magnitude was significant. And our preparation for it was not, it was nil. And we responded, we recognized in our hearts compassionately what needed to be done. It's ingrained in us, you know, vis-a-vis behavioral anthropology. We knew what to do. We knew what was missing. Okay, did we hit the target 100%? No. Did we hit it at 70%? Probably. Many of those Gold Star families are with us today. They're an integrated part of our community. They're part of the continuum of engagement as we lose members even today, and the families begin their journey dealing with stressors and grieving. There is a cohort of people from our community that have already experienced the same thing to help them go along in the journey. So we have regular meetings, we have retreats, we have guest speakers come in, folks like yourselves, to explain where advances are being made, what the dynamics are, and to, candidly, to express appreciation for their tenacity in staying with the community. So having that integrated community, making sure that within our community, this is how life happens. You know, you need to be educated on it, and you need to know that the support is there for you. So the Gold Stars are there. Social media has allowed us to connect with our veteran community. We have a veterans, an expat website, or ex-team guy website, ex-naval special warfare website that allows us to engage with them. And candidly, I watch it and I can see trends. I understand some of their frustrations in getting treatments if they need them. I understand kind of where they are in life and the challenges they had in transition, and it's really healthy, I think, for our force to be able to flow back and forth. These things didn't exist 20 years ago. They exist today. I think, and I'm not advocating that any group be studied, but I will tell you there are pockets within the force where this type of continuity exists and good information can be extracted. And there's a nexus out there somewhere between what you're doing with neuroscience and behavioral anthropology and prevention and the therapeutics. And so with that, I'd like to just, again, express my deepest appreciation to you for what you're doing, for your concern and your care for the veterans. And I will tell you the active duty force is looking to take what you come up with. Obviously, you know, in unprecedented collaboration and most welcome collaboration, you've got DOD and the VA working together on these issues. That was exposéd magnificently yesterday. You know, what great things are happening because of what you're all doing here. So we'll be prepared to leverage that, to determine what the best practices are, and then to implement them throughout the force. So thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless America.